Welcome to the Birth Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Hoff, BSN RN. I am a wife, a mother of two, and a nurse specializing in the care of women and newborns. In this podcast, we will share powerful journeys of birth givers with the goals of lifting the veil on the birth experience, healing through sharing, and beginning an open conversation to strengthen trust and promote transparency between birthing people and healthcare providers. Hello, today I have with me Khyati Desai-Seltzer. Kiaty is a mompreneur focused on social impact and transformational change through both of her businesses. As the owner of Vyana Infant Massage, LLC, she teaches parents the art and science of massaging their babies, an ancient indigenous practice for short-term and long-term benefits addressing sleep, gas, colic, reflux, immunity, bonding, congestion, growth, and so much more. Through her consulting practice, engagement, and impact consulting, she works on authentic resident engagement in affordable and mixed income housing to create thriving communities. Kiaty graduated from LSU with a bachelor's in sociology and international studies, and from GMU with a master's in public administration in nonprofit management. Kiaty lives in Arlington, Virginia with her husband and two daughters. She enjoys yoga, meditation, travel, dancing, and exploring new places in her free time. Kiaty, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm glad that we could finally do this.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. It's my pleasure.
Well, I'm excited to hear your birth stories. I purposely wait until the podcast so that I can ask all the questions. So I'm learning this at the same time that everybody else is. So I'm excited to hear your birth stories and how that's impacted your career, because it sounds like you've done a lot of different things in your professional life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kelly. So like every other mom on this planet, the stories of their baby's birth have transformed them. And for many times from being, a woman to a mother, like the biggest change of your life. And so my story is no different. When I was pregnant with my daughter in 2015, I had been in the natural holistic world for a few years, but didn't know all the things that I know today in between the births of both my girls. But I knew at the time I either wanted to birth at home because I had a friend who had birthed at home. She had a doula. I just resonated with all of that, and I wanted a similar story. My husband had some concerns around birthing at home. And so our compromise was working with the midwifery program at George Washington University, which actually is pretty hard to get into. And so I was finally accepted at GW with midwives and had a pretty good pregnancy for the most part, typical things like heartworm and all of that. But around 32 weeks during the checkup, they found that my baby was breech. And so, of course, as a first-time mom, all of this is new to me. And so my doula recommended a chiropractor who is well-known in this area. And so I started working with him. I went back to my acupuncturist because I heard about moxibustion. I did spinning babies close to maybe, 30-something weeks around Thanksgiving. We decided to do the ECV, which is the physical manipulation of baby in utero. So they attempt to turn baby, for those of you who are not familiar and have breech presentation. Now, the truth is, if you are birthing at home, you work with the midwives, they're often trained in turning baby. Sometimes baby will turn, but as baby gets bigger and space narrows, it's harder for baby to turn. And there's usually a reason why they're in that position. But midwives are often trained to turn them either during pregnancy or even during labor. But in the hospital, the positions that it requires you to be in, which is such as all fours, which can lend itself to opening up that pelvic and allowing them space, you can't do that in the hospital for liability reasons. And so after trying all of the things, even laying upside down on an ironing board on the sofa for weeks, I did everything I knew at the time. Baby still wouldn't turn. And so I got to about 41 weeks, and I had to be transferred to the OBs, the OBGYN group, and had to have a scheduled C-section. So I had her at 42 weeks, had a scheduled C-section. And thanks to having a doula, while 68% of women will report having a traumatic birth, having a doula help me prevent a traumatic birth. So while it wasn't the birth that I wanted, and in fact, having a cesarean, I think, has resulted in things in my daughter that I maybe would not have been there had she been a vaginal. It wasn't traumatic. And so I credit her, my doula, to that, and incorporating some things that they call gentle cesarean. So not having my hands tied down so that I could hold my baby, or letting my husband announce the sex of the baby, or having a clear curtain, immediate skin to skin, delaying cord clamping, those things that are important. I was, for the most part, was able to get all of them except one, which I think might have made a difference. And that was the vaginal sweep. And so, fortunately, I had, delivery that I could have. And postpartum, my mom was here to be with me, which is very common culturally. And my husband was able to have a little bit of time off. So I had some support. And even still, the fourth trimester rocks your world, right? So even for those of us who feel like we got it, or we're calm, or we're centered, or we're under control, you are not in control. And the more type A you are, the harder the fourth trimester will be. And everything is hard, right? Your body has changed. You are different. Everything is hard. Breastfeeding is hard. Figuring out how to use a pump is hard. Figuring out how to do the baby wearing, everything is difficult. And so it really challenges you and breaks you open in ways that are unimaginable and really people can't prepare you for. But as a result of my two experiences and working with so many hundreds of families in the last 6 years, I say, prepare for the fourth trimester. Prepare for it like it is the most important thing, because the birth is important. How babies are born does matter, and no one should tell you otherwise. But most people stop there. They're not thinking about, how am I going to eat healthy food, not frozen or takeout? How am I going to get movement? Who's going to help me with pelvic floor therapy? Who's going to teach me how to massage my baby? Those things we don't think about. And so if you are listening and you're pregnant and you still have a baby shower, or you still have a registry to do, make sure you include services. Not things, but services, because those are going to be what makes a difference in your fourth trimester. They may not use the beautiful crib. They may not like the swing that you got. All of those things you can purchase secondhand. You can borrow it, but you really need services to help you and baby. And if you're able to have a healthy fourth trimester, that will impact baby's first 40 years. And my culture and the Latin culture, la cuarentena, the first 40 days are really critical. So prioritize yourself, self-care, make sure there's a community around you. All of this is easier said than done birthing in America, but make sure that you are cared for. And so having that first birth experience and understanding what I could have done differently, because what happened in that first year, we learned that my daughter had somehow developed food allergies. And so there could be some connection to the cesarean, although there are people who have vaginal births and their babies have food allergies, which could be a host of things that we could talk about in another time. But the vaginal membrane sweep, which I had requested, which they had denied, maybe could have made a difference in giving her the healthy bacteria exposure that she didn't get as a result of the cesarean. Fast forward 2 years into her life, I had about 3.5, 4 months of maternity leave, which compared to others was great. It was still very hard to leave. I still don't think you should have to leave your child that early. And we should get more maternity care, postpartum support like other countries to make sure that our kids are healthy and that we are healed and recovered. So I did go back to work at 4 months. I did cry every Sunday. I come in the room, my husband's like, oh, must be Sunday. Leaving her, it was very challenging. She was the first one in my family that had to go to daycare because my mom was there to care for my sister's kids. And so it was hard for everybody. And my goal was to just get her to the point where she was on solids and she was crawling. And so we had a natty for a few months, and then we put her in a home daycare, which turned out to be really great. So fast forward to when she turned 2 years old, I was still in this position. I was a director of resident engagement at a nonprofit affordable housing organization. And, I had joined and I'd done really meaningful things, I thought, to make a difference. But then it seemed like most of my days were spent on office politics and figuring out how to manage that, and not the more important work, right, of helping transform people's lives by introducing capability and self-agency. And so there was one particular day, we're rushing from work to daycare and daycare to work all the time. And so I was rushing. For me, my commute was an hour and a half. So I was taking 2 trains and a bus from work to home. And so I got to the daycare just before it closed, like, yes, I got here in time, not realizing then remembering that my next job started, which was being a mother. And I remember being in the daycare, happy that I got there in time, but not seeing my child. She was right there, but she was almost a blur. And that's when I realized that I was just so stressed out. I had become an empty shell of myself, and the work that I was doing that I thought was meaningful was no longer meaningful. So it wasn't worth leaving my daughter for something that was no longer making a difference in the world. So I decided to leave that position and thought that I would go on to my next nonprofit job. But in that time, in the 3 months I took off to figure out what was next, I read an article in a magazine about baby massage. And my mom had been massaging my baby since she was there. All my nieces and nephews were massaged. Me and my sisters were massaged. So massage has been part of my family, and it's a part of my culture. So in India, where I'm from, a midwife comes to the home, massages mom and baby for 3 months, because they really see that massage is highly effective. But you and your baby have been through a journey, physical journey, emotional journey, and massage can help so many things, which we could talk about. So then I was like, well, this sounds really great. I wonder if moms in America know about it. And even to this day, 6 years later, usually about a third of people have heard about baby massage. Most people have not heard about it or think it's something that's sort of a nice to do. It's a luxury practice, which, to be honest, even I thought that way. Oh, yeah, that's something nice we do in our culture. I didn't know until I went through the training that there's so much science and evidence behind it that it can really be life-changing. And so I went to Google, as we do, like baby massage, and there was a training coming up. So my husband encouraged me to take it. And even at that time, I thought this was something I would do on the side. But the community development work I was doing also kind of became a consulting opportunity. So I said, well, let me try this out. I never planned to be an entrepreneur, but in motherhood, we go through so much, and there are so many moments of pain that most of the entrepreneurs I know have started their businesses as a result of that pain. So out of that pain comes this beautiful product, which is intended to make the journey easier for the moms to come. So I want moms that don't know about it, who are still not pregnant or thinking about pregnancy, or, in their 20s, to know that, like, I should massage my baby. Like, that's a non-negotiable. And similarly, my partners who I've worked with who are in lactation because they had breastfeeding challenges, or who are sleep consultants because their baby didn't sleep, like, all of this came from a pain point, which is really beautiful, right? So we want better than we had, and we don't want others to suffer like we did. And so I'd started Vyana Infant Massage, and this was 6 years ago. And in the second year, I was getting more requests from other places. So I created a digital course that moms could download on demand to view as they could based on their time. But the benefits have been so incredible and so life-changing. So in the short term, baby massage helps with improved sleep, which we all need, especially that first year without having a village to support us. Reduced gas colic, improved immunity because it increases white blood cells that are produced. It helps with breastfeeding relationships. It helps bonding. Most of us will suffer with postpartum depression and anxiety, which is very common. It can help with that. Congestion, brain, growth, just so many benefits, short-term and long-term. And it could go on about how you should never stop massaging your baby. My 8 and 4-year-olds still get massaged because there are so many benefits to it. And so I have really become even more invested and passionate about the power of baby massage when I see what it does for our families. When I see that they are so excited. We just had a client this morning whose baby was suffering with colic. She's like, oh my God, day 2. And I was like, this is awesome. And it really improves our lives. And so when we are in the thick of it, we're in the 4th trimester, we're just trying to sleep to try to get baby to stop crying. It's incredibly beneficial. And then when we're out of that, it helps with that ongoing bonding, with growing pains, with self-regulation, with understanding what is loving touch versus not loving touch, because we ask baby permission before we massage them. Can mama massage you? So you're giving them the ability to consent, right? When my daughter was 2 and I was going through the training, I was like, well, I haven't massaged you since you were a baby. Let's do this. And she's like, no. She's just as strong-willed today. But first I was like, well, this is good for you. I'm your mom. I know it's good for you. And then I had to really accept that it's her body, right? Even as her mother, she has say over who touches it and when and how. That didn't last long, right? She started massaging her baby dolls and then asking me for a massage. And to this day, she and her sister ask me. But in that moment, I had to respect her autonomy. And so, usually they will ask me for a massage, or I'll ask them, do you want a massage? But it really sets them up to understanding relationships. We talk a lot about how America is considered touch deprived. And this is true even pre-COVID, right? The client I had this morning, her husband is British. And so he's very, like just nervous about touch. And that's okay because we all have a touch history. But there is a huge detriment to our health, our physical, physiological, emotional health when we are not touched. And so what they found in studies is that where there is less touch, there's more violence. And unfortunately, we see that in our communities in America every day, right? We're struggling with things all the time. They studied children on playgrounds in France versus Italy. They saw how kids touch each other in meaningful, loving ways in those countries versus in America. And so when we are not touched, which is physiologically as a human, the most essential sense that we have, we can live without any other sense, but touch is one that we cannot survive without. And when we neglect that and we undermine and undervalue that, there is a consequence to our health and our feelings of safety and security. So our children need to hear, I love you, but even more so, they need to feel that we love them. It's similar to a business, handshake, or the flight attendant or waitress that gets a better tip because she's been, more physically interactive. And so, we've tended to either say over-sexualize things or say no touch, right? So the opposite of predatory touch is not no touch. The opposite is loving touch. So we're really setting up our kids like, this is what loving touch looks like in the event that you are in a relationship. Or, oftentimes our teens and tweens subconsciously feel like I need touch, and they seek that out in relationships, right? I need to be hugged. I need a cuddle. But if you're getting that in the home, then you won't feel as much of a need that I have to be in a relationship. Furthermore, when they get to being in their own relationships and marriages, they know how to model loving touch. If fathers are engaged in massage, that's so great for a father to say, this is what loving touch looks like, right? For a young girl to say, oh, my father would massage my arm after a soccer practice, or, and you do it in a context, right? So with babies, a cute baby in a diaper on the floor is very normal, right? Obviously, you wouldn't do that with a tween, but they're coming home from dance or from soccer, and you're saying, hey, you seem like you've had a rough day. Do you want a foot massage? Can go a really long way. So not only do they feel a sense of safety and security, do they feel love, but they're also understanding, hey, this is what loving touch looks like. And I'm getting it in the home. And so having partners involved is also incredibly powerful. My husband is a mental health clinician, so he works a lot with people with addiction and trauma, and everything goes back to this early 0 to 7 years, right? It's all about attachment. And so when we don't have that healthy attachment, we see behaviors sometimes immediately and sometimes later on in life. And so in these 6 years, well, my second daughter is now 4. When I realized I've learned so much after the first, and then starting this business, partnering with so many wonderful organizations and providers such as yourself, I've learned so much more about birth, pregnancy, postpartum, and realized how much we are lacking in America in caring for mom after baby, right? ACOG says it's like wrapper to candy. So once mom has her baby, we toss her aside like we toss a wrapper aside. The baby shower is about the baby. Everything is about the baby. And then we have some of the worst outcomes, right? We have a high maternal mortality, high infant mortality, yet so much money in America. So why is that? And there are, reasons for interventions and other things, but we are not caring for our moms in postpartum. So learning all of this with my second baby, I was like, I'm going to do things even more differently than I did with my first. It happened to be COVID, and I was like, I'm having her at home. And there was no argument about it. So in January 2021, I had her at home. So she was a VBAC. And I had a wonderful midwife, the same doula, but the midwife had to approve me to be a candidate to be a VBAC, right? So they have to look at the incision, how many years have since passed. And since there are 5 years between the two of them and everything checked out, I was approved as a candidate. So what was also really great is that she came to my home, which was great during a pandemic, but I also had a 4-year-old at home. So how would I leave her for all my doctor's appointments? So it was a really nice service to have her come to the house. Having the gestational diabetes exam with real food, another option I didn't know was possible, was like also life-changing, like none of that yucky drink. I had a real meal. She tested me. Having my daughter there to also experience my journey, but I also had exposed her to birth videos because I didn't want her to be there and be scared and what's happening with mommy, like is she okay? And so she became as addicted as I am to birth videos. I love to watch birth videos. So she loves it. She said, when I grow up, I want to do the just one part of what the midwife does, but it really helped her to see as well, like about birth can be a beautiful physiological experience and not a scary, traumatic experience. And so with my second, I had her at home. I had lined up the providers I needed. I knew I needed pelvic floor therapy. I knew I needed support with sleep. I knew I needed a lactation consultant. My mom was again here for a few months. And I think also it being a pandemic and us being able to sort of slow down and just focus on our family, which is another thing I recommend to my clients. Culturally, and in many families, the first 3 months, you won't have any visitors. And if it's just you at home, that can be completely isolating and could make matters worse. But if you have your mom or aunt coming with you or your husband's there, it would be really incredible for you to just say, like, we will see you at month 3 or in, 60 days or whatever you decide. Because after that, you're going to open the baby up to the world. Everyone will be able to see them and it will be wonderful. But you will never get that time back where it's just you and your child. You're getting a sense of who your baby is. You're recovering. You're not hosting. And in order to do that, you need a village to help care for you. You need some people to say, we're going to make warm, nourishing foods, like no smoothies and salads, right? Like you've got all this empty space in your belly that needs to be replenished with warm, nourishing foods. And Chinese medicine, Indian Ayurveda, they'll all say like you need warm, nourishing foods to replenish. Another practice that I didn't know about even with my second, so if I ever had a third, which I'm not planning on, I would definitely do this, which is called belly binding. Another wonderful Eastern practice. My instructor is Malay. It's a rooted in Malaysian culture where they come. So like in India where someone comes and cares for you, in Malaysia, somebody comes and prepares herbal baths for you, teas, nourishing foods, and they put a bind on you. So I know when I was in the hospital, they gave this sort of Velcro bind that was uncomfortable and it's plastic and sucked. And
it's the worst.
It's the worst. But this bind is made out of cloth. It fits like a corset. She's made it to where you can tie it yourself. And the idea is to restore your body, putting the organs back into place, putting the rib cage back into place, helping you become like this, your smaller size. Not that there's any hurry to get to pre-baby size. Like it took you 40
stability.
Weeks for stability, pelvic floor support. Breastfeeding helps because I know I had terrible pains while breastfeeding.
Because of
this would have helped me not to do the punching thing. And even today, like I'm my younger one is 4. I'm still struggling with pelvic floor things, right? And I did the pelvic floor therapy, but maybe having done the belly binding in that first 3 months could have made a difference. And so we don't know until we experience it, We think we'll be fine. I don't need this person. I don't need this service. But you just don't know. And every experience is different. And so Vyana Infant Massage was inspired by my daughters. They are the reason I do it because I see even today, as old as they are, how much massage benefits them. And I want that for every family. And if attachment or lack of attachment is the root of so many issues in American society, and I also truly believe lack of community. Just coming from India on a trip, community is so integral to their existence. So like my girls were watched by strangers that, even on the plane, like there was a female on one side, a male on the other side who didn't know each other. And both of them cared for my kids, both my girls, without us asking, without us, they just cared for them. They like fed them their their meals. They told them their eyes were too close to the TV,
Yeah. Get involved.
So, right? On a 15-hour flight, like I
Mhm.
really appreciated that we weren't alone with these, kids on such a long flight. So I do believe in this country where we are dealing with a loneliness epidemic,
Mhm.
Postpartum depression, anxiety issues, seniors that are isolated, teens that have mental health crises. Like I feel all of that is rooted in a lack of community. And
Mhm.
we're so isolated and we're so independent here, for better and worse, that we really are struggling, and moms are struggling. We are raising children on our own without the support of mothers and aunts and grandmothers, the people that will tell us this is how you breastfeed, this is how you massage. And so we have to create our own villages, and sometimes we have to pay for those villages. It's better than not having any support at all.
Mhm.
And so I do believe that a lot of the things that we're struggling with here have solutions.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are being practiced around the world. So we know in Korea, for example, they have these postpartum care centers,
Mhm.
which are popping up around America, but they're incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Or in China, there's the Golden Sitting Month. For 1 month, nobody does when you have a baby, you care for your baby, and your community cares for other kids. They do the cooking, they do the cleaning, right?
Mhm.
You're not expected to do it all. So
Mhm.
having moms come here and birth babies, go back to work, cook, clean, pay bills, run businesses is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And it's affecting our families, and it's affecting them short-term and long-term. But if we look to these practices, infant massage, belly binding, the sitting months, all of these things can help lower our rates of postpartum depression, anxiety, increases our chances of survival and thriving, not just surviving in fourth trimester, but thriving. Like the answers are there. But we have to figure out how we can fit them into our society, into our way of life, which is not easy. And moms themselves look around and say, well, she's doing it or they're doing it. I can do it. I can do it without any help. I can survive without sleep, but we can't. Like we need help. And those people that you see are doing it are not thriving. We're all struggling. They're struggling.
You're just masking the struggle.
Or they're masking it, right? And
Mhm.
definitely don't rely on social media for your gauge. Like
Mhm.
there's no shame in asking for help. We definitely need people around us to care for us so that we can better care for our kids, because we can't do both.
Have you ever felt like your hormones are running the show? If you're dealing with sudden weight gain, sleepless nights, or a missing spark in your sex drive, it's time to flip the script with the Book of Hormones, the ultimate playbook for women's health and hormonal balance through every stage of life, by Dr. Shweta Patel. Dr. Patel, a highly regarded OBGYN, breaks down the mystery of hormones in a way that's easy to understand. No medical jargon, just real-life solutions. With a writing style that's Mindy Project meets Sex and the City, she'll have you laughing, nodding, and finally understanding your body. From managing postpartum and PCOS to tackling hormonal imbalances head-on, this book is packed with actionable steps to help you take control of your health. It's like having your gyno BFF hand you the ultimate playbook to thrive. Want to feel amazing again? Download it free on Kindle Unlimited or buy it now on Amazon. Find the link in the show notes. Yeah, absolutely. There was so much that you said. I started taking notes because I didn't want to interrupt your flow. You were talking about the service registry.
Yes.
That is so important and not something that was an option for me when I had my kids. It didn't exist. It was just the things registry, right? And that wasn't important. My gosh, I could have paid for my doula. I could have paid for breastfeeding support.
Yeah.
There was so much that I could have paid for that was it ultimately, like a lot of this stuff, like you're right. My daughter didn't like the swing. So that was a waste of money.
Exactly.
Get a brand new swing because I was paranoid about germs,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That doesn't, like make it make sense.
Yes.
I mean, there's ways to check things out and make sure that it's not going to be
a hazard.
That it's not. Yeah, exactly. Also, you can rent things.
Yes.
That's available now. Like
there are companies. Yep.
There are companies that rent baby items.
That's right.
It's amazing what you have access to. And like you were saying, like sometimes you have to pay for your village or you have to. So that's why I created the Bump and Beyond Virtual Village, which is essentially so that we have access to the information, right? So that service providers like you can share what moms need to know.
Absolutely.
And like your wealth of information,
And we don't know.
Through.
Yeah. Those are, yes, absolutely. And we don't
And
know
even if
everything there's need to
somebody
do.
doesn't, yeah, exactly. And even if it's not for you, to
Yes,
have like one condensed place where you can learn about it is
absolutely.
so important. Like, oh, I don't know if I need lactation, but my
Yeah,
gosh, that infant massage is
yeah,
really important. That
yeah,
sounds like it would. And I'm just going to say, I have done some sort of variation of infant massage, probably not to the extent or
yeah.
to the expertise of what you have done. But because my kids had colic, and then I have friends whose babies are like, constipated. I'm like, give them to me. Let's move around, because they do tell us that in nursing school. They
Yeah.
do talk about that movement and how to, it's a brief verb, not even a chapter, probably a paragraph.
But they do. I mean, NICU nurses are often, when I went through my training, I had NICU nurses there, right? They often massage preemies to shorten the duration in the hospital, right? And
Right.
you massaging them is just intuitive. Like we
Mm-hmm.
know intuitively that we should be caressing and touching and golden
Mm-hmm.
hour and, skin to skin and kangaroo care. Like all of that has been around, right? And is still around for millennia. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not new, but
Mm-hmm.
intuitively we know as women and as mothers that our babies need touch. They
Yeah.
need that skin to skin. And I've
Mm-hmm.
even seen a device that massages baby and it's cute. But I'm like, the whole point is like your hand to your baby's body, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
while in India, a midwife will come and massage mom and baby, here we teach parents how to massage their babies for a couple reasons. One, no one can afford to have someone come to their house every day. But more importantly, we are trying to build the parents' capacity that even after I'm gone, you know how to massage. Like it should
Mhm.
not be something cute you did for baby when they were little, but it's like part of your ethos, your family's lifestyle. This is what we do. It helps us, get over hard days, get over colic, whatever it is. But our family is about loving touch. And
Yeah.
so if I can teach a parent how to massage their baby, as much as I would love to massage these cute babies all day long, it's just oxytocin everywhere. Who
Right.
wouldn't want to do the best job in the world? But I have to do it. I do it on a baby doll, and mom will follow, or dad will follow, partner will follow, and they will learn as I go. And so for me, it's really important that they know how to do it when the session is over. Otherwise,
Mhm.
it doesn't have the impact that is needed. That you
Mhm.
can say, okay, colic is over. 6 months down your line, the baby's teething. Oh wait, I remember there are strokes for that.
Mhm.
Or in a year, baby's having growing pains. Oh, I remember the strokes for that. So I really want it to be a practice that mom's comfortable doing without having somebody outside coming doing it for them.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important too, because I think that's another reason why I like the community is because everybody has to have a virtual offer at a price point that works for most people.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, nobody can afford to have the midwife in this country
No.
come to your house and massage you every day. So you need
Yeah.
to learn those skills.
Yes.
And I think it's just such a game changer to be able to be exposed to that information and decide
You,
what works for you.
yeah. And when I didn't share this, but the same week that I was being trained to be an infant massage therapist instructor, my daughter was 2, as I'd shared. She woke up at midnight screaming. And so my husband and I jumped out of bed. And I remembered then, because we could tell, like, oh, this sounds like a gas pain. And I remember that daycare said she had a lot of sweet potatoes, which are good for
Mm.
you, but a lot of fiber.
Mhm.
So, in that moment, I'm like, okay, we can give her gas colic drops. Or guess what? I just learned this routine, like literally that day, were gas colic. And so I asked my husband, I said, should I do the routine? He said, well, it can't hurt. And I'm still a little bit like nervous, insecure. What if it doesn't work? What if I look dumb? What if it hurts her? What if the crying continues? All those things. There's so much intuition that we have that is sort of we're robbed of every day.
Mhm.
But like you knew that touch was good for your kids without being
Mhm.
trained in infant massage. And so I was like hesitant and self-doubting, but I went ahead and did it. I did the routine in less than 5 minutes, Kelly. She exploded, right? Like so much for a wipe. So we jumped into the shower, got cleaned up, came back out. She had another explosive diaper. We jumped back into the shower. I came back out. She had a third diaper. Like it literally cleaned her out. My husband's like, what did you do? You exploded our daughter. And she did. She just got cleaned out. But guess what? She slept beautifully the rest of the
Yeah.
night. And so not only did I help her, right, immediately, holistically, naturally, effectively, I also felt empowered as a result of it. I was like, wow, I just helped her with my hands. I just
Mhm.
solved her gas problems without any I didn't have to rush to the hospital. None of that. I just did it myself. double feature, right? That I get from teaching. Like, not only am I helping them help their baby, but I'm helping them feel like I got this. And we don't often feel like that as parents. We don't feel like I
Yeah.
got this. Or once we do got it, there's another thing they're expressing that we don't got. So
Right.
so I love that they have a sense of empowerment and like, okay, even if I don't know this or I don't know how to help them, I can learn, I can get it. And so there is that piece as well that I really love, that I can help the mom or dad feel empowered.
Yeah, that's amazing. You were talking about massaging both mom and baby and the NICU nurses learning. So labor and delivery nurses are now learning that's part of spinning babies is the actual massage touch.
Okay.
So like when they're talking about the ways to touch to get mom loosened up, they talk about the fascia. And so like the really light touch and the jiggles and the just warming your hands and that kind of stuff to loosen up the fascia. And then moving into positions that like stretch and elongate some of those muscles that can kind of, when you're sitting for so long, be tensed up and make it hard to deliver. They're showing us, they're requiring now nurses in some of the hospitals that I work at to go to some of these classes like spinning babies. And we had a purposeful positioning class to continue to help nurses understand how to utilize touch in order to make delivery more effective. And it's making everybody's hospital experience better.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I hear what you're saying. And I see also the twofold benefit. It's not just about positioning. It's not about thinking about the baby in the pelvis and the bones. It's also about how to utilize touch to bring about the oxytocin rush and the safety and the connection that you need in order to feel safe in a strange environment having your baby. Hey there, incredible mamas and mamas to be. Are you looking for an online community where the magic of motherhood meets the empowerment of self-care? Then I've got just the place for you. Join my Bump and Beyond online community. At Bump and Beyond, we celebrate the journey of every bump rocker and post-birth boss. You, dear mama, deserve nothing but the best, and that's exactly what this community provides. Prepare to be pampered, cherished, and showered with all the love and support you deserve. Our mission is simple yet powerful: to be your one-stop destination for all things self-care, nurturing, and indulgence. Because let's face it, you're not just a mom, you're a fierce, unstoppable family CEO. At Bump and Beyond, I search the nation for mamas who are passionate about helping other mamas like you become the most successful version of yourself during your motherhood journey. Every resource in this community is either a virtual service that you can enjoy in the comfort of your own home or a product that can be shipped right to your doorstep. And everyone in the community is passionate about helping new mamas thrive. So come on in, explore our virtual aisles, connect with like-minded individuals, and immerse yourself in a community that is always here for you. Whether you're browsing, making new friends, or simply treating yourself, know that this space is yours to return to whenever you need a dose of positivity and empowerment. Welcome to a place where you are celebrated, cherished, and honored every step of the way. Welcome to the Bump and Beyond online community, where every mom shines like the superstar she is. Join us today and let's build our motherhood village together. Go to www.facebook.com/groups/bump and beyond. That's www.facebook.com/groups/BUMP, N as in Nancy, BEYOND. You can also find the link in the show notes. Be sure to say that you heard about us on the Birth Journeys podcast. I can't wait to see you there.
Absolutely. And right. And so to that point, touch is the first sense that develops in utero. And it's the last sense that leaves our bodies when we die, right? You can lose your other senses, but that's the only one we can't survive without. And so baby already knows it. A lot of moms like instinctively rub their bellies, right? Like, how do they know to do that, right? But that is actually really good for them and their baby. And so there's this whole field. I mean, in the East, it's been there since thousands of years, but in the Western world, talking about conscious pregnancy, like what does that mean? And so a lot of people are, well, how can I not be conscious and pregnant? But we are told to, take our vitamins and, maybe we're told to exercise and eat right. But nobody talks about the mental and emotional health of us and how that affects our babies. And
Mhm.
so we know in a lot of the field, the studies around epigenetics, which Bruce Lipton has done a lot in that we are affecting their perception of the world with our experience. So not
Mm.
only does baby eat what we eat and
Mhm.
all of that, but baby feels what we feel. So when we're sad, baby's sad. When we're
Mhm.
angry, baby's angry. And that's not to say that we can't have those emotions. This is another thing I changed in my pregnancies because I learned the hard way that toddler tantrums are related to maternal stress.
Mhm.
So what we experience, right, when we're carrying our babies, we think is just what we're experiencing, but they are holding all of that. So we know that anxious moms have anxious
Mhm.
babies. We know that like there's a difference between our first, second, third children. Like the third ones are usually more chill. The first are more anxious because we were anxious.
Mhm.
We didn't know what we were doing and we were worried about everything and
Yeah.
germs and all these things. But they have found stress in umbilical cords. They have found that the taste of the amniotic fluid changes for baby when we're stressed.
Mhm.
That, happy tears and sad tears taste different. There are all these things that they're learning more about. But the idea of epigenetics is that we are preparing our babies for the world they're being born into.
Mhm.
So if we are stressed, we are telling them you need to be stressed because this world is like rough. But the
Mhm.
thing is, for the most part, most of us are fortunate not to be living in war-torn areas or
Mhm.
extreme poverty or disaster zones. While there are people
Mhm.
living there, we don't. We have everyday modern industrial stress. Going through what I did with my first, with my second, I was like, okay, it's COVID. My husband's dad is dying. My husband's mom's husband is dying. I have any support. I'm isolated. I put a 4-year-old through like just all these stressors. But I had to be conscious that, okay, mommy's okay. I'm going to drink my favorite tea. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to take a bath. And my second child is super chill, and I do attribute that to being more conscious and conscientious in my pregnancy to say, wait, I can't just think about myself. Like my baby is feeling all of this.
Mhm.
I don't manage my stress, it will be harder for me and for her in the birth. The birth can be difficult based on your pregnancy. The postpartum experience is affected by your pregnancy and their toddler years. Because if
Mhm.
you think about it, if you're stressed, they're experiencing that stress. Where's that stress going to go for them? It's just going to stay until they're able to release it.
Mhm.
And so I've had clients who have children who are really weepy or who are really anxious. And I'm like, well, what was your postpartum like? What were the early? Oh, I was crying all the time. Yeah, we're connected even when we're physically not anymore. And they believe that at least for the first couple of years, you are still attached to your child. They feel what you feel, they experience what you experience. So the birth is incredibly important. Your postpartum is really important, but so is the pregnancy,
Mhm.
and put it all on mom, but like it is up to us, but it's also up to our partners and our community to say like this mom is doing an incredible thing for our society right now. They're creating a new human being. Not
Mhm.
only is she physically building the eyebrows and the eyelashes and all these wonderful things, but the quality of the child and the child's personality and values and all of that is
Mhm.
happening too right now. So let's love on this mom. Let's take care of her. Let's make sure she's not too stressed out and she has what she needs. And whatever her requests and demands are, as crazy as they might seem, are fulfilled because what she's
Mhm.
doing is massive. And let's honor what she's doing. And so there's not enough of that honoring women and the incredible work that they're doing in building babies and birthing babies and feeding babies and caring for them, for their lifetime. It is your service to humanity, right? We're all doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I want moms to have beautiful babies so that my kids have wonderful, people to live in a world with, right? Like if I'm completely selfish, I want all of us to have babies who are loved on and more thriving. And baby massage is one way to do that. Conscious pregnancy is another way. Whatever you want to do to have a healthy baby and healthy life, throw it all in and ask your family, say, like, this is what I want. I want massages. Don't give me an expensive stroller. Like, give me massages. Put this on my registry. Have it paid for by flex spending. There's so many options nowadays that we didn't have when we were pregnant.
Yeah, I love that. I think every mom needs to find what it is that's going to help them
Yeah.
feel like they are safe in their bodies and taking care of themselves and being taken care of. And
Yes.
I think that's great. And I think that we don't stress it enough because there's such a, pull up your bootstraps society here.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's just kind of it's toxic. which is why I actually haven't announced this yet, but we are going to start doing pampering showers in the postpartum period
Oh my God.
with the service registry so
Wow.
that we encourage moms. And the reason we're starting with the after period is A,
Right.
because it's harder, and B, because it's really hard to get moms that are pregnant to think about what
Yes.
they want and what they're going to need until after
Yes.
the fact, right? So we always say prepare for pregnancy. What
Yeah.
you have to do, I feel like more than anything, is mentally
Yeah.
prepare for
Yes.
the pregnancy and and then if you need massages or whatever during your
Yeah.
pregnancy, you focus on that. And then
Right.
after the fact, have the village that's going to help you. So like
Yeah.
if you needed the infant massage after because that's just what your journey is telling
There's,
you,
yeah.
then being able to have that pampering shower a couple weeks after you deliver and be able to ask for those things
Yeah.
and just changing the culture, because I think that there is a market for loving on moms afterwards.
Yes,
I keep
absolutely.
seeing it showing up and people wanting to know how to help moms. And then they just go over to the house and see the baby and they sit there and they're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Right.
Now we're going to help people learn what to do. Like you can finance their postpartum journey
Yeah.
and be a part of that process. It looks a little bit different than it does in other countries like India,
Yeah.
where people know what to do, right? Because it's
Right.
ingrained in the culture.
Exactly.
We can start making that part of the culture. And I
Yes.
think that it's just so important to start changing the culture so that we love on moms after delivery as well.
Absolutely. And you're so right. I mean, when I go to moms about belly binding, mostly belly binding because that's about them, they're like, I don't have time. And they're right, right? Because they're doing all the things. But we neglect ourselves because
Yeah.
we have the bootstraps culture. We're like, that mom is doing it. I really don't have time. But there's a cost to that for us, but also for our kids. And we are still women with beautiful gifts and talents and interests. And we are mothers too, but we're not always going to be needed as much as we are needed then. And we do or lose ourselves, so
Right.
we have to make sure that we prioritize ourselves as well as caring for our babies. And like you said, there's either the bootstraps culture or it's like, oh, you just need this product and it'll
Yeah.
solve all your problems, right? Like that's what we're told. There's a
Mhm.
multi-million-dollar industry around baby registries. So I love that even though you and I didn't have that, that other moms can go to a registry and create a service-based, option for them. But the other thing I did differently with my second, even during a pandemic, was something called a mother's blessing. And that I think is rooted in the Native American culture. But instead of focusing on baby, the mother's blessing focuses on mama. And
Mhm.
so, and then I actually hosted one for my best friend, but we did things like doing a floral foot bath for mom. We
Mhm.
all like took turns massaging her arms and legs that are tired from carrying a baby. We wrote positive notes so that she could post it during labor or afterwards. For me, they created a necklace of different stones that each of them picked for whatever reason. And they made that necklace for me to wear during labor. It was about me. There were no like cute onesies and gifts for baby. It was about me. And for me to be able to read during labor, like, you got this, mom, you are stronger than you believe. Or for me to look at notes in postpartum when I'm like really struggling and suffering, like, I've got a village. They're there. They're not physically there, but they've got my back. And so that's something else that you can think about if you are pregnant, to have something that's a mother's blessing. It's intimate, no like fancy Instagram decorations, no expensive showers. This is the meaningful time when you connect with your best girl and guy friends, and maybe your sisters and moms are there, and they're just like, you are doing amazing. You're going to be an amazing mom. And here are all the ways we're going to show you. And you can like customize it. Like, I want,
Mhm.
it was COVID, so I didn't get the loving touch, which I love.
Yeah.
But I got the beautiful necklace and I got the positive notes for me to read and a beautiful thread for me to tie around baby's bassinet to
Mhm.
ensure that they're safe. All these like really meaningful things that you will appreciate more than the
Yeah.
DIY onesies that are often very like
Right.
attractive anyway.
Right. And don't you feel so inept when you're buying somebody a onesie and you're sending it
Right.
to them? You're like, this is meaningless. I'm trying to express to them that I care about
Yeah.
what their postpartum experience is like or what their baby's journey is like. But it just feels so like nothing. Like,
Nothing
let's make it more meaningful
meaningful. Like
and
when
give
you've
people
been
what they
there,
need.
yes. Yeah, and I've noticed that there's a trend now to do the, what do they call it? Like nesting parties. So that you're going over,
Mm.
maybe the mom and dad are, they're, giving you pizza and soda, and you're like helping them get ready for their baby with the room or setting up the diaper state, whatever that is. And
Mhm.
that's like a really cool new trend happening.
Cute.
But
We didn't have
yeah,
one, but we lived in New York with my daughter, and
yeah.
my husband called his cousin who lived down the street, which is why we lived in the area we lived in.
Oh,
And I was like, pizza and beer, guys. Here you
yeah,
go.
I got you. Like, please help me. Right. Or even, yeah. And there's things that you can do in postpartum to get help. Like, and the same thing when I have friends or family that are pregnant, I'm like, this is really not going to make a difference. I know that you want that on your registry, but like, even like a breastfeeding station, a basket with like snacks
Yeah.
and water and all the things that you need for breastfeeding that you never knew that you would need because it seems so natural. Like
Mhm.
that will go a much, longer way. So you could have a party to like create that.
Yes, and come into the house and look and see what you could,
Yes.
where it could go, what you could
Yes.
use. Yeah.
Don't
That,
go.
yeah.
Yeah. And I did that with a friend in between knowing what I knew and experiencing it because you really don't know until you go through it. You're like, oh, everybody's having babies, right? Like
Mhm.
people are having babies. What's the big deal? Why are they making a big deal about breastfeeding? And then you go through it and you're like, oh, okay. Now I
Yeah.
get it. So I had a friend who had a baby and it was like, I went over because she was struggling, with some postpartum depression, anxiety. And I was like, I'm going to fold your laundry. I'm going to wash your
Yes.
dishes. I would love to just sit here and hold that cute baby. But is that
Right.
really going to help you? Like, you want to be
No.
able to do that. You want to bond with your baby, right? Why should
Yeah.
I take that from you? And
Right.
so think about when you visit a mom, not about you and what you want, but what they need.
Mhm.
And if they
Bring
need,
them the coffee, bring them a lunch,
yeah,
put the
bring
dishes
their
away.
favorite drink from Starbucks, whatever you
Yes.
can think of. If they
Yes.
want to keep, if they want you
And
to,
don't make them ask. They don't
no,
know what they want. They don't
they
know what
don't.
they need. They're barely alive right now.
Or they're too shy to ask for help. Just
That too.
we don't want to just come into a house, but you really just need to come into the house, look around, see what needs to be done, and just do it. Don't be
Right.
asked. Don't wait. I don't care if they get offended, but they're going to appreciate that their dishes are washed, their laundry is folded, and they have a few minutes extra when baby's sleeping to also take a nap. Like
Mhm.
that will go a long way.
And
And
put a
they say
frozen dinner in the fridge.
exactly. And we will always remember as
Yeah.
moms who was there during our postpartum, who was
Yeah.
there during our pregnancy to care for us. You never
Of
forget
course.
that.
No, you don't. The people that came to me and were like, tell
Yeah.
me what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And I was like, when is it going to get back to normal? And I
Yeah.
remember, that's the fun question, right? Because you
We're
know
all
what she's going to
new
say to
normal.
me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes. Redefine normal.
Never, friend. This
Never.
is new normal and you will figure it out. And
That's
I was
right.
like, it was terrifying, but also so freeing
Yes.
because it was the ability to release that expectation
Yes.
that I
Yes.
was going back to normal, that you can
Right.
have a baby and go back to normal. There is
Normal.
no more normal. Like
No.
your normal cannot ever be the same. And you
No.
need to know that going into motherhood. You're
Yeah.
not going to go back to the efficiency you once had. You're going
No.
to figure out how to do it less
And different
efficient
way. Yes.
and more intentional.
Yeah. And I like to be efficient and effective and but they're teaching us to like chill out and slow down, right? Like there was a
Right.
reason for that. Our brains are literally different than they were. And it's not
Yes.
that we're not smarter, but they've
Mhm.
been reorganized to care for
Mhm.
a human being than to like manage spreadsheets or to-do
Right.
lists, right? Like
And there's a season for everything.
yeah, absolutely. Like
This isn't
by
for like
design.
your new normal isn't necessarily going to be forever.
No,
Your new normal is the beginning of this normal for now until your child finds another phase to
that's right.
go
Yeah,
through.
take it and like help you.
Well, and then also
So
like having a 6 and a 9-year-old now, I'm realizing I can do things that I couldn't do last year.
right.
And so now the
It
new
does.
normal is getting back to look a little bit more like the old normal,
Yeah,
but my priorities are different
they're different.
and the
And
things
there's
that I
no
want to do
easy
are
way.
different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I often think like, oh, I miss the newborn stage, but I don't miss me in the newborn stage. Like I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
be me now, right? Like
Mhm.
healed and all that, taking care of a beautiful little baby and not like
Yeah.
getting, I'm not tired, I'm not exhausted. But there
Yeah.
is something that you mentioned that's really valuable that I found as much as I love like working one-on-one, the group classes can be
Mhm.
incredibly beneficial because you have other parents around to say, this worked for us, this
Mhm.
didn't work for us. You get validation, you get resources, you get renewed energy to say, okay, I can do this. Right. And
Yeah.
so I love that when moms come together in a group class to say, like, hey, try this or this worked for us. Facebook groups, for better or worse, I know some of them like it brings out the trolls and people are mean to each
Yeah.
other. There's also a lot of anecdotal evidence that you can say, oh, my baby went through the exact thing,
Mhm.
and this is what worked for us.
Yeah.
And so this is sort of a real life Facebook group. And what you've created too is
Yeah.
getting moms to come together as a village to
Mhm.
support each other, share resources. So there is a lot of, I remember going to La Leche League meeting after my first, and I was like overwhelmed and exhausted, and breastfeeding like was draining, and I was always like, when is this going to be over, and then later on I enjoyed it, but those early days were like excruciating. And I think I asked the question like, how do you cope, or how, and somebody said, I think she said something like online shopping, and everyone laughed, and I was like, yeah, okay. I think sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm gonna distract myself by scrolling, and at that time, social media wasn't as big as it is now.
Mhm.
But just to hear another mom say like, there really is nothing to do, no easy way to get around it. You have to go through it. But one way I found to cope is to shop. It's
Yeah.
like Amazon makes so much good money from new parents, but
Right? Yes.
the validation was really what I needed. And also going to a breastfeeding center in DC one day and hearing another mom, maybe I seemed frazzled and overwhelmed, and she's like, you're doing a great job. And I was like, well, thanks. So it's just really nice to get that community of support from
Mhm.
somewhere to validate
Yeah.
and keep us moving and encouraging us to, like, it will get easier. It will get,
Mhm.
I promise you.
Yeah. Well, and in finding a community you align with. So you're talking
Yes,
about there are trolls, right? If there's trolls, maybe that's
that's
not
not,
your community.
no.
There are
Yeah.
good groups out there.
Yeah.
So just have the patience to keep looking until you find where you're comfortable. Like, for instance, so I joined the group that's in our local area just because another mom recommended it. And I was so jaded from another national group that I was on because there are so many trolls in that group.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I don't like moms groups, And so I got into the one that I'm in now, and they are so helpful
Yeah.
and so non-judgmental
Right.
that it was like I even learned skills to not judge people from
Wow.
this group.
Yes. Yes.
I was like,
I mean,
oh, I'm judging myself.
right.
And also because I'm judging myself, I'm judging other people. And maybe I should just chill out. And I'm like
Yeah.
learning from this group.
Yeah. I want to
So
be
find your group, right?
find your
Like,
group.
don't settle.
Absolutely don't settle. Because I've been on, and I'm still on some groups that they're just like mean, like
Mhm.
unnecessarily hostile and aggressive. And I'm like, this is just
Right.
not necessary, right? Like, we
Right.
are all struggling. We're all on the struggle bus together. Let's not pull each other down. Let's just help each
Right.
other stay on until
Yeah.
things.
And I think 9 years ago, when my daughter was born, we were just coming out of that mommy judgment phase
Okay.
of like social media,
Yeah.
and now we're like, we've slowly transitioned to the you got this mom and like the
Yes.
being,
Supportive. Yeah.
supportive. But that was just such an interesting transition to have a baby.
Yeah. Like, as if you're not like,
Stressed
you're
out enough.
it's stressed out enough, you're railing on yourself enough, not good enough,
Exactly.
I'm not doing a good job. And then you get that from the online community of people, being mean. It doesn't help.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, find your group, like Kelly said.
Yeah. So there's a couple of just hospital things
Yeah.
that you mentioned that have kind of, since you had your first delivery was planned in a hospital because of the breach and being
Mhm.
42 weeks,
Mhm.
there are some things that have actually changed in the
Okay.
hospital. And I want to share that because when I started as a labor and delivery nurse, like 9 years ago, it was true. Like people were not able to get into hands and knees
Okay.
at certain hospitals
Yeah.
due to liability. Like if like 9 years ago, if we had had a patient with an epidural, we would have not done hands and knees because it's not safe. But
Yeah.
now with spinning babies and with the
Oh,
purposeful positioning, they're teaching us how to safely maneuver somebody who is epiduralized into the hands and knees position and
wow.
hold them there without
That's
hurting
amazing.
ourselves or them.
Wow.
So I feel empowered at this point, but you're going to
Yeah.
need some coworkers, and my coworkers also feel empowered. We all use those skills to get patients at hands and knees in
That's awesome.
epidurals now, which is wonderful because then we can turn your baby. And also, I noticed that when I first started, they started to consider like a person being awake with their arms underneath
Huh.
the ties, the Velcro
Yeah.
ties that you can get out of. That's not okay for people that are awake because it could be considered a restraint. So
Right. Oh.
at the hospitals I work at, I can't speak for other hospitals. We haven't been doing that. So it's something that for safety, when someone is asleep, you need to, so that they don't fall off the table because of some involuntary jerking of their arms or whatever. But
Okay.
at this point, it's to be expected that if you are awake for a surgery, and I'm saying this because I want my listeners to know that if you're awake for a surgery, you should not need to have your arms tied down unless you are a threat to yourself or someone else, which is a completely different scenario.
They mentioned that it was so you don't touch your IVs. So I was like, okay, if I don't touch them, well,
that's dumb.
Do I need to not?
They will use every excuse to try. Yeah, no, but we don't, at least at the hospitals that I work at, we don't do that anymore because it's considered a restraint. It's there if mom feels more secure hanging on to something. Yeah, it's there. Okay. At the hospitals that I'm working at, that was from a C-section. Yes, that was from your C-section. Yeah. We would never tie someone down in labor. The skin to skin at the C-section. So that has been something that it's a challenge, right? Because you need staff to kind of assist with that because you're covered. Yeah. How did that work for you? Because up until very recently, we haven't been, and we don't do it standard for C-sections at the hospitals that I'm working at, but we've been trying to push for it. So how did that look for you? Hey there, amazing mamas to be. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the thought of childbirth? Do you have worries and fears that keep you up at night? Well, I've got some fantastic news for you. I'm here to help you transform your birth experience from fearful to fierce. I'm Kelly Hoff. I'm a labor nurse and host of the Birth Journeys podcast. If you love what you hear on this podcast and wonder how I can help you prepare for your birth, look no further. As your transformational birth coach, I will partner with you to ensure that you feel confident and empowered as you prepare to welcome your baby into the world. Together, we'll develop a customized program where I help you learn labor coping skills, set achievable goals, and make you feel well prepared and supported for the big day. So what makes birth coaching different from those traditional birth classes? Birth classes can often overwhelm you with a flood of information in a short period of time, leaving you with more questions than answers. But with my birth coaching program, you get personalized one-on-one support, saving you time and effort. Here's what you can expect from my birth coaching program. Customized guidance, tailored to your medical needs and preferred birth setting, personal support, one-on-one sessions to address your specific concerns and goals, empowerment, gain the confidence to make informed decisions and be your own advocate during childbirth. Birth coaching is not a linear process. We'll work together to determine what parts of the curriculum need to be addressed at each session. And the best part? You can enhance your birth coaching package with additional services tailored to your journey. Ready to transform your birth experience? Join my birth coaching program today, and let's take this incredible journey together. Head over to kellyhoff.com to learn more and get started. Remember, with me by your side, you'll go from anxious to assured, from overwhelmed to empowered. That's KELLYHOF.com. You can also find the link in the show notes. I'm excited to be a part of your transformational birth journey.
I feel like we were able to get the immediate skin to skin, and that was the one reason I didn't want my aunt Zone to be able to hold her.
Did you feel hold her? Did you feel strong enough? Like you didn't have any issues with the anesthesia, or?
I felt strong enough, but I didn't have complete mobility, I think. Right. I was still a little bit restricted. My husband was there too, but I feel like I was able to hold her after the surgery. Yeah.
So, because I just remember like 5 or 6 years ago, there was a post on social media about like being charged for the skin to skin. And
interesting.
And it was interesting because it was essentially charged for another staff member to make sure that because you don't have any muscle control from basically like your breasts down or even sometimes your nipples down. It's hard because you can't use your muscles to engage your arms. Like you're very limited. And so that was the thought process. Another thought process, and I'm just sharing this because we need to figure out how to problem solve this and evolve, right? Evidence shows that skin to skin is best right after delivery. We had issues with the temperature of the OR. And there's now some evidence that it doesn't need to be as cold as it normally is. there's being pushed back. And I believe ACOG has talked about this as well. But then one of the hospitals I worked at, there was concern from the neonatal team that the OR is too cold to be doing skin to skin with the mom.
Oh.
But if the baby's fully covered and the staff's there making sure, and then that leads back to having the staff there to educate, to make sure. So it's just like one thing leads to another, and it's all the stuff to make it hard to do skin to skin, but it's worth problem solving.
Yes, absolutely.
So hospitals out there, we need to continue to work on prioritizing skin to skin during the C-section.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, we know that first hour is so critical, especially for the breastfeeding relationship. Have you seen the same thing with the delayed cord clamping?
So yes, it's standard 45 seconds to a minute at both of the hospitals that I work at.
Okay.
And some providers, if the baby's okay, will let it go longer during the C-section. But we also want to make sure that we get mom sewn up. So it's like that balance, right? We're not going to do 5 minutes of delayed cord clamping when someone is sitting there on the OR table open. It's not the best use of our time. So I'm seeing changes. I see changes that need to continue to happen. Like you were talking about the vaginal seeding. There's evidence for it. We just don't know enough from the medical standpoint to make it standardized. Like then we have questions of if you're group beta strep positive, or what if there's stuff in the vaginal canal that we don't test for. Some of it is a little excessive in the questioning, but that's how we study things, right? So we ask all the questions and then we filter them. What I notice is things start to happen around 15 years after we start seeing the evidence and everything pop up. Like it just takes a long time because you have to have the studies, then you have to have the hospitals hear about the studies, and then you have to have the change and the trial and error, and how do we make this work? And then, that didn't work for this one, and that led to a bad outcome. So how do we prevent that? It has to go through all of that process in order to become standard in hospital. And then people have to be brave enough to try it. I feel like we will eventually get there, right? If the more evidence we have that it's helpful for the baby to have the same flora that is available in the birth canal after a C-section. Once we have that evidence and we have standards and practice to keep people safe, keep babies safe during that process, I think it'll happen, right? But moms can still ask for it, and it's good that you asked for it. Sometimes hospital policy doesn't allow for it. I would think that at some point, I don't know that. I've never had anybody ask for it in our hospital, so I don't even know if there's anything. It's not common. But I have interviewed people that asked for it, got it, so
interesting. Okay.
It's coming along. And that's just how change works. I used to be the type of person that I was like, well, why don't we just do it? Like what's stopping us, right? I've seen the process evolve, and I appreciate what it takes. And while it's still frustrating, I like to share the process, because I think that going into a hospital where you've heard about a thing, the thing isn't happening, is frustrating. And it's easy to be judgmental, and it's easy to be angry and say, well, this hospital sucks because we're not doing this. There's a lot more that goes into it. And yes, you can ask for things, and we can try to, get creative and work around it for that one person without making it standard policy.
Right.
So there's ways around it. And I want people to feel empowered to ask for things, because the more we ask, the more it will come up. And especially if you're writing like a review of the hospital, like if you say something like, I really wish that you guys would look into vaginal seeding. That would have made my experience better. That kind of thing will actually help the process, because more and more people are asking for the same thing. We're more likely to start doing it standard. They're going to listen. The goal for hospitals now is to give patient-centered care. So the more you ask for what you want, whether you get exactly as you pictured or you get like a part of it, the more you're teaching them how to give you individualized care. You're not being a pain in the butt, right? You're just showing them what people want so that they can develop a product that can give people what they want. And hospitals are businesses too, and that's what they want.
Well, how about the lithotomy position? Is that still like
less common?
Okay.
Yeah, it's less common. Most of it is like older providers that are kind of stuck in their ways that only do that. We don't use stirrups very often unless it's just for specific positioning or if the patient feels more comfortable. So personally, and the nurses I work with are taught to move positions when pushing, because physiologically and
you're like,
it makes sense.
Gravity.
You have to not be on the sacrum in order for the baby to move past the sacrum.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really the only way it works.
Right.
And so at the very least, if we have a provider that really wants the lithotomy position,
Yeah.
the patient will be on a tilt. But guess what? The providers aren't in there when we're pushing.
Oh,
We
interesting.
call them when the baby is crowning.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
They don't have time. They have to manage all the patients on the floor, right? And so
Right.
we're one-to-one when we're pushing. The nurse's assignment gets changed so
Wow.
that nurse can be with that patient the entire time we're pushing because they need help.
Yeah.
So it's up to the nurse to put the patient into positions.
Oh, okay.
And then when the doctor gets there, if we have to move to lithotomy because that's what makes them comfortable, I'll sneak a little roll under there so that we're not flat on our sacrum, or I'll move them down because each bed in the hospital has like a little dip.
Okay.
And it's made for the sacrum.
Wow.
So like the pressure's on the top part of the sacrum so that the bottom part, the coccyx, opens up. And that's how the bed is shaped if you're all the way down to the bottom.
Right.
So there's ways to get around that. Okay. And it's really important to know.
Yeah, I can feel for moms because there is so much to know. So just like
that's why you get support
with resources. Yeah, get
right.
resources, get the support you need for the whole journey from like conception to 1 to 2 years postpartum, like whatever you need. But I mean, pelvic floor therapists are helping, and chiropractors too. But pelvic floor therapists are helping moms prepare for labor, right?
Oh yeah.
Like they're helping them. Okay, this is how you open up your pelvis, right? Like you have a lot more room than you think, but there's so much fear. You know, so much fear. I see even Facebook. I'm so scared of giving birth. I'm so scared. Like there's so much fear in our media and just everywhere of giving birth. But like if you have a good team to say this is the things that you need to do. Like for me, I think my daughter's breech positioning was due to my sitting at the desk all day. Yeah. Right? Like if I'm sitting all day, 68 hours a day, there's no space for her to move. And so some of the things they did in India, like my mom was like, that was also for delivery, right? So they would, even pregnant women were sweeping like while squatting. So what are you doing? Opening up your pelvis. You're allowing for more room. You're strengthening your pelvic floor. They didn't have pelvic floor issues, right? Because they were doing exercises or practices that were their chores that just prepared them for birth. And they didn't know that. So when I have, you know, Indian friends who are pregnant, I'm like, listen to your moms and grandmothers. They just listen to them. They know so much. Definitely move, do these certain yoga positions or do these certain squatting, not so close to like delivery, but like these will help you prepare for labor. They'll open up your pelvis. They'll help strengthen that pelvic floor. Because I know I had that pain. And pregnancy, the pelvic floor pain was very real. After the birth of my second, I had a 2nd-degree tear. And the pelvic floor pain was worse than like the labor and the tear. Yeah. So like it can be really rough. But there are things that you can do to prepare your body for a better labor and birth experience.
Yeah, it's so important to prepare your body, your mind, all of the things for the birthing process and beyond, and have all of those resources available.
When you said, you know, ask questions, advocate, ask the questions. If you don't like one offer, ask, is there another way? Right? Like, is there something else I can do? Do I not have to have my hands tied down? Can I eat real food for the, just like, there will often be other options, but we just don't know to ask.
Yes. Yeah. Tell me what that was that they did for the real food option for the gestational diabetes test.
I think she gave me a list of items that I could choose from. And she tested my blood sugar. I had the meal. She came back, I don't know what it was, like an hour later and retested it. And so, And so I was like, well, this is a lot easier because the glucose test was like, disgusting.
It was.
And maybe it's an issue of practicality in the hospital. Maybe it's an issue of liability. Maybe it's just like food options, allergies, all of those things. And then that's why that was created. But ask them, like, can I have real food? Can I do this? Can I, is this an option? And if it's no, then, then you have a different path. But oftentimes there could be other options than the one that you've given.
Well, even if you just some providers have no idea that that's being done.
Yeah.
So if you bring it in and say, hey, would this be an option? Even if they say no, you've presented it to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And then if the next person does the same thing and the next person and the next person, they're going to start really looking into it.
Into that,
right?
Yeah. Right.
So just don't be shy when it comes to asking questions like that, because if it doesn't make things change for you, it might make things change for the next mom.
Yeah.
And if you have another baby, that might have led to you being able to do that in your next pregnancy.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So that's how change happens.
Yes. And the self-advocacy, I think, is really important.
Yeah,
You
I
don't have to
agree.
just accept everything and disregard your own interests, desires, intuition, but just ask the question. And at
Mhm.
least you're not left wondering, like, what if?
Yeah. And that's kind of what I do, like when I'm helping people prepare for pregnancy. If they
Yeah.
wanted an alternative, I
Yeah.
try to give them the common alternatives that are offered in the hospital. And then I
Yes.
give them the one next one where you could
Yeah.
push a little,
Right.
right? But then
Yeah.
we talk about managing expectations if we don't exactly get what we want, and
Right.
also asking the questions in like a kind manner that
Yeah.
kind of disarms people
Yeah.
and makes them feel, instead of not
Threatened or,
threatened.
yeah.
Yeah, but kind
I,
of more like under stress or
yeah.
under pressure. It
Yes.
helps them feel more creative. And they're
Gotcha.
more likely to help you if
Yeah.
they feel creative and they
Exactly.
feel like you're not pressuring them.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think it's a learned skill to be able to figure out how to talk to people in order to get what you want,
Exactly.
so to speak. It's not really a me versus them. It's a let's just be creative and
Yeah.
talk.
Let's
And
problem
if
solve
you
together.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And if you use certain language like you're talking about, what are the alternatives? That's in the brain model. I'm sure your doula shared that with you.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
brain model, the benefits, risks, alternatives, intuition, and nothing.
Yeah.
That kind of gets you started down the questioning of, if you've gone through the benefits and risks and it doesn't make sense to you, you can ask for the alternatives.
Yeah.
I usually have people skip to the nothing. What would happen if I do nothing? And then
Nothing.
after you get all that information, what does your intuition tell you?
Tell you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I
Yeah.
go on and I usually have them talk about I teach them the cuss words that we use in the hospital to communicate with providers, which is, I'm concerned, I'm uncomfortable, and this is a safety issue. These are how we escalate things kindly in the
Yeah.
hospital to get the provider to realize that you're really trying to get them to listen, because sometimes they're just stressed out and thinking about the next case that's going to,
Right.
and you have no idea how stressed out they might be about this
Exactly.
other patient, right? And their brain just can't bring anything else in. So when you use the words that help to disarm them, but also kind of trigger them to think, maybe I should pay attention to this might be a priority, then it helps them switch to that creative aspect of their brain where they're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, this might be a good option.
Yeah.
So I work through a lot of that when I'm coaching my clients, so that when they go to the hospital, they ask in such a way that they are more likely to get what they want.
To get what they, yes, to be received better. Because the client I had this morning, she said it was against her intuition, but she didn't want to be induced, and she didn't think it was going to be a good idea, and it turned out not to be. And so you could, like, in a disarming way, say, what are my other options? What else is possible here? What can we do? Instead of, just saying no or shutting it down. And there might be other alternatives to that.
Well, yeah. And if you're like me, when you're in the situation of being a patient, you try not to make waves, because then they don't want you to be like the healthcare provider that's a pain in the butt.
Right. Yeah.
And so I did stand my ground a little bit in my first birth, but I did kind of allow things to happen that I wasn't fully comfortable with too. So it's like, learning how to say those things without feeling like you're making waves is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we go, and before we talk about your program, because we're going to, and how my listeners can access it, I ask every mom this: if you were to go back and talk to yourself at any time during the process of pregnancy, birth, and all of that stuff, and it can be either pregnancy or both, what would you go back to tell yourself, and where would you go?
Oh, wow. That's such a good question. I think I would really go back to my first pregnancy and telling myself that what I experience and what I feel, my baby is feeling. And it's up to me to make sure that she feels safe and she feels calm and peaceful as much as we can together, because we will journey in pregnancy together, in birth, and in postpartum for several years. And in the first couple of years, I don't know if others have shared this with you, and I don't know if people would believe it, but I often felt like she could read my mind. So I'd be thinking something and she would say it.
Yeah.
And I've heard that that's not uncommon, especially with your first. And that probably ended after she was 2, which I've heard are the times that you're still very connected. And so knowing how much my emotional mental health affected her is something I wish I had known at the time. And something that I share with my families and friends and clients as well, that, like, take care of your heart, take care of your mind, that are just as important as taking care of your body. through diet and exercise. So that's what I would tell myself is don't estimate the power you have of creating this human life and all the things that they will evolve to be, and take care of that now for yourself and for your child.
Yeah, learning self-care is super important as a mom, and also society. Help moms.
Yes, please.
If
I
you
like
see a new mom, help her.
yes, yes. Don't forget, and I think we're all still surviving, right?
Mhm.
Especially if we live in America, we're all still surviving, and so we might know mom, and we might be able to do a little bit, but not as much as we would love to do.
Mhm.
But there have been some interesting models where I've seen them match a new mom with like a more seasoned mom.
Mhm.
And so maybe they work with them for 3 months or something until they've got their own wings to fly. But that can be really incredible. So yes, you see a mom, help a mom out. You know, she's
Mhm.
struggling, you're struggling. We're all in this together. And we have a lot of power as mothers in numbers, in our strengths and our capabilities. We have a lot of power. And we often forget that.
Yeah,
But we really can change the world if we support each other and try to have the best birth, pregnancy, postpartum experiences we can have.
exactly. All right. So I want to know about the online offer that you have and how
Yes,
people can find it.
absolutely. So we have 2 courses. One is a mini course on specifically gas colic. And then we have a holistic course that is on all the issues from gas colic and sleep to congestion, teething, postpartum depression, bonding, all of those things. Our mini course is $69 and our full course is $169. They are available immediately upon purchase and for a lifetime. So if you have other kids or your parents want to come in and learn, you have access to this course. The full course has 8 modules that cover legs, tummy, chest, arms, face, head, back, and gentle movements, as well as some expert interviews. And then, of course, our mini course just includes the gas colic, the tummy strokes. But you will see immediate results with gas colic. We often have families who say, "Oh, it worked beautifully. My baby tooted, or my baby passed," whatever it was, because their digestive health is so critical, right, to their overall health. Doctors will ask you how many diapers are they having. So we get really excited when our babies are just experiencing healthy digestion. And so you can find all of that information on our website at vyanainfantmassage.com. And there you'll find information both about our baby massage offerings as well as our belly binding. But our online component is the baby massage. That is our passion and our purpose.
That's amazing. I love that. And we'll have that in the show notes with a link. Khyati, thank you so much for joining me. I could talk to you all day.
I know, right? I love this stuff. I've become such a birthing geek.
Yeah, right there with you.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
love it. Thank you, Kelly, for all that you do and for having me on.
Same to you. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into my podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. Don't forget to share the podcast with a friend who can benefit from the valuable insights that we share here. And if you could take a moment to leave a 5-star rating and review, it would mean the world to me. If you're ready to work one-on-one with me to embark on a transformational journey towards a confident and empowered hospital birth experience, go to kellyhoff.com/empowered and enroll in my Empowered Hospital Birth Coaching Program. Together, we'll create a roadmap to a birth experience that you'll cherish forever. That's KELLYHOF.com/empowered. Let's make your birth experience extraordinary.